There's a woman somewhere in your life right now, maybe at work, maybe someone you see regularly at the gym, at a coffee shop, in your social circle, and she's already shown you more than once that she's interested in you. Not in the way you were taught to look for, not with a dramatic gesture or a direct confession, but in a quieter way, a way that most men walk right past without registering anything at all. She's not hiding it from you. Her body is doing something that the thinking part of her brain has very little control over. It's happening in real time, in real conversations, in ordinary moments that feel completely unremarkable until you understand what you're actually looking at. The reason you've missed it until now isn't that you're unobservant. It's something more specific than that. You were taught to watch for the wrong signals entirely, the loud ones, the obvious ones, the Hollywood version of attraction, where she laughs at everything you say, touches your arm, and makes it crystal clear. And because of that, the real signals, the ones that are far more honest, have been moving right past your awareness for years. By the end of this video, that changes. There are 4 specific body parts that reveal genuine attraction in a woman, not performative interest, not politeness, real, involuntary, nervous system level interest. And once you know what to look for, you will not be able to unsee it. Stay with me, because body part number 3 is the one most men not only miss, but actively misread as disinterest. And by the time we reach number 4, you'll understand why so many men walk away from moments they should have stayed in. Body part 1, her feet. The first body part is one you've almost certainly never thought to look at. And once I explain why it matters, you'll understand why it's actually the most honest signal on this entire list. We're talking about her feet. Not what she's wearing, not how she's standing in a general sense, specifically the direction her feet are pointing during a conversation with you. Here's why this matters. The human foot is governed by a very old part of the brain, a part that developed long before language, long before social etiquette, long before any of the polished behaviors we use to manage how we appear to other people. That part of the brain handles approach and avoidance. It decides constantly whether something in the environment is worth moving toward or worth moving away from, and it communicates that decision through the body's orientation before the conscious mind weighs in. When a woman is genuinely drawn to someone, her feet, even when she's standing perfectly still, even when she's managing a composed, neutral expression, will tend to angle toward that person. Not dramatically, not in a way that reads as obvious, but if you're paying attention, the direction is there. Picture a group setting, a small gathering, a work environment, a social situation where several people are standing and talking. Watch where her feet are aimed when she turns to speak with someone she finds compelling. The upper body might be perfectly neutral, her expression might be calm and professional, but the foot, the one closer to the floor, the one she's not thinking about at all, tells you something her face has been carefully trained to not show. In a seated setting, this translates differently. If she crosses her ankles and points them toward you while sitting across from you, that's the same signal operating through a different physical constraint. If her knee is directed toward you while her upper body remains composed, that matters too. Of course, context always matters here. If she's seated in a narrow space, or standing in a doorway, or positioned in a way that naturally restricts her orientation, the signal is less reliable. One position proves nothing. A consistent pattern, especially when her feet return to pointing toward you even after she's moved away and come back, that's when the signal becomes meaningful. The mistake most men make when they encounter this for the first time is that they start watching too obviously. They look down at her feet in a way that's noticeable. Don't do that. You learn this once, and then you let your peripheral vision handle it. You don't stare. You simply know where to include in your awareness. Feet tell you about direction, where her attention is being pulled. But there's a second body part that tells you something more specific, whether her nervous system has decided you're safe. Body part 2, her wrists. This one is quieter than the first. You won't see it in loud rooms or group settings, but in a one-on-one conversation, if you know what to look for, it's one of the clearest signals the nervous system produces. We're talking about her wrists, specifically the inner wrist and inner forearm. take a moment to consider what the inner wrist actually is. The skin there is thin, the veins are visible. It's one of the most physically vulnerable surfaces of the human body. And because of that, exposing it carries a meaning that runs much deeper than most people realize. In mammalian behavior, and humans are mammals, no matter how sophisticated we believe ourselves to be, exposing a vulnerable surface to another individual is a signal of non-threat, of openness. It communicates at a biological level, I am not guarding myself from you. When a woman unconsciously rotates her wrist outward during a conversation, resting her arm on a table with the inner side facing up, gesturing toward you with her palm visible rather than angled away, letting her inner forearm face you while she speaks, she's doing something she's almost certainly not aware of. This is what researchers who study body language sometimes call a vulnerability display. It's not a decision, it's a nervous system response to a feeling of safety and attraction combined. The two tend to travel together in women, genuine attraction and genuine ease. One rarely exists without the other. Now, you might be thinking, couldn't she just be comfortable? Couldn't this be someone who's naturally relaxed and open with everyone? And sometimes, yes, that's a fair question. But here's the detail that separates general comfort from specific interest. When this signal appears specifically around you, when her wrist exposure increases as you move closer, when it appears during moments of more personal conversation, and disappears when the topic becomes neutral or group-focused, that specificity is the signal. Comfort without attraction tends to be consistent. Attraction-linked openness tends to be directed. Before we move to the next signal, there's one additional layer to this that most explanations completely skip over. This signal appears most clearly in quieter environments, because loud, crowded, socially demanding situations activate a kind of social armor in most people. In those settings, the wrist tends to pull inward. The posture becomes more guarded, simply as a function of social self-management. When you're alone with her or in a calm, low-pressure environment and the inner arm appears without you having done anything to prompt it, that version of the signal is the most reliable. The mistake here is overanalyzing it in the moment and telegraphing that you noticed. You don't respond to it. You simply register it. You let it inform your understanding of where things are. That's all. The first two signals are about direction and safety, but the third one is different. It's about something more specific, and honestly more telling. It's about proximity and what her body does when you get physically close. This is the one I want you to pay the most careful attention to, because it's the signal most connected to something she genuinely cannot control, and most men who notice it have no idea what they're actually seeing.
Body part 3, her neck. We're talking about her neck, and more specifically, what she does with it. Think about the neck for a moment from a purely biological standpoint. It's where the carotid artery runs. It's the most exposed and least protected part of the body. There's no bone shielding it, no muscle armoring it. In the animal kingdom, exposing the neck to another individual is one of the most significant vulnerability behaviors that exists. It communicates something almost primal. I am not threatened by you. More than that, I am open to you. In humans, this behavior hasn't disappeared. It's simply become more subtle. When a woman feels genuine attraction towards someone, not polite interest, not professional warmth, but actual physical and emotional pull, her neck becomes a site of involuntary behavior. She may tilt her head slightly to one side, exposing the lateral side of her neck, and hold that position while she listens to you speak. She may lift her chin slightly, elongating the neck rather than tucking it downward. She may reach up and move her hair away from her neck in a gesture that has nothing to do with her hair being in the way. That last one is worth pausing on because it's the one most commonly misread as random. There's a specific version of hair movement that's practical. She moves it because it's physically bothering her, and once moved, it stays moved and her hand drops and doesn't return. And then there's a different version, one that's slower, where the hand lingers slightly at the neck after the hair is already gone, where the motion seems to draw attention to the neck itself rather than simply clearing it. That second version is the one that carries meaning. Related to this is the collarbone. When a woman touches her collarbone during a conversation, not scratching an edge, not adjusting clothing, but a light, almost absent-minded tracing motion while she maintains engagement with you, that's a self-touch behavior. And self-touch in proximity to someone we find attractive is the body's way of managing nervous system activation. It's a soothing behavior, but the reason she needs soothing is the signal. Now, an important qualification. This signal tends to appear after a baseline of comfort has already been established. You won't typically see this in a first interaction when the situation is still being assessed. It emerges once she already feels some degree of ease. So if you're in an early conversation and you don't see this, that doesn't mean the interest is absent. It may simply mean the comfort hasn't arrived yet. Watch for it as the conversation deepens. The mistake most men make here is that they notice something, the hair movement, the neck tilt, and they immediately try to capitalize on it. They lean in too fast, they comment on it, they shift their behavior so noticeably that the moment collapses under the weight of being observed. This signal doesn't require a response, it requires awareness. Body part 4, her eyes. The fourth body part is the one I almost didn't include, not because it's rare, but because once you understand it, it changes every conversation you'll ever have with the woman you're interested in. We're talking about her eyes, specifically a particular sequence of eye contact behavior that almost no one has ever explained to you properly. You already know that eye contact matters. Everyone knows that. But knowing that eye contact matters is not the same as knowing what specific eye contact behavior actually signals, and the difference between the two is enormous. Here's what you need to understand. There are different ways to break eye contact, and each one means something different. When a woman is uncomfortable, when eye contact feels like too much, when she's not interested and the connection is feeling like pressure, she breaks it sideways. The eyes go left or right, away. They're looking for somewhere else to land. That lateral break is an avoidance signal. It's the nervous system moving away from something it's not drawn to. But when a woman breaks eye contact downward and then returns, that's a different signal entirely. That downward break followed by a return is what happens when the nervous system is processing an emotional response it didn't fully expect. Researchers studying facial behavior and emotional response have observed this pattern consistently. The downward gaze during a moment of emotional intensity is not avoidance, it's processing. The person is going inward briefly, checking something and then coming back to you. In the context of attraction, that sequence communicates something specific. You affect her. She felt something. She went briefly inside herself to process it, and then she came back to you. You might be thinking, how do I know the difference between a glance down out of shyness versus what you're describing? And that's exactly the right question to ask. The difference is in the return. Shyness tends to produce an extended absence. The eyes go down or away and take a while to come back, if they come back at all. What we're describing is a brief, contained movement downward, less than a second, followed by a deliberate return of eye contact, sometimes accompanied by a slight softening of the expression on the return. Not a smile necessarily, just a quiet change in the face. There's a secondary element here worth mentioning, the slow blink. When a woman blinks slowly while you're speaking, not the rapid blinking of nerves or discomfort, but a long, unhurried blink that almost resembles the kind of blink someone does when they're deeply at ease, that's a signal of full emotional engagement. The eyes aren't darting, the attention isn't divided. She's entirely present with you, and her nervous system is calm enough in your presence to produce that slow, unhurried rhythm. These two behaviors, the downward break and return and the slow blink, are the hardest of the four signals to catch because they happen in fractions of a second. But once you've seen this pattern described clearly, you'll begin to recognize it. And when you do, you'll understand something about that specific moment in a conversation that you previously would have walked away from without knowing what had just passed between you. This is the signal most men not only miss, but sometimes actively misread as disinterest, because she looks away, because she blinks slowly and quietly, and they interpret that quiet as distance when it's actually the opposite. That's the moment most men walk away from without realizing it.
4 signals, 4 body parts. And if there's one thing I want you to take from all of this, it's that none of them are performances. That's the part that makes them worth understanding. When a woman performs interest, when she decides to signal attraction deliberately, she'll use the tools she's aware of, her words, her smile, a touch she's chosen to make. And those deliberate signals matter, of course. But the signals we covered today are different. They're not chosen, they're not managed. They come from the part of the nervous system that doesn't ask for permission before it moves, before it orients, before it opens. Feet that angle towards you, a wrist that turns outward, a neck that tilts and holds, eyes that go down and come back. None of these require interpretation in the moment. None of them require a response or a reaction. What they require is simply attention, a calm, unhurried awareness of what's actually happening in the space between two people. And here's the larger truth beneath all 4 of these signals. Attraction, when it's genuine, is not a mystery. It's a biological event. It moves through the body according to patterns that have existed far longer than any of the social rules we now use to manage them. You were never taught to read those patterns. That's not a failure on your part. It's simply a gap in what most men are ever shown. You have it now. You don't need to walk into a room scanning everyone with clinical detachment. That's not the point. And honestly, it would get in your own way. What changes is quieter than that. You become someone who notices more, who reads a situation with a layer of understanding that wasn't there before. And that awareness, over time, becomes natural. Which brings me to something I want to ask you directly. Which one of these 4 signals have you already seen in a woman around you and didn't know what it meant until right now? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If what we covered today gave you something real, consider subscribing. Every video on this channel goes exactly here, into the specific, honest, observable details of female psychology that most people never bother to explain clearly. No hype, no simplification, just the real thing plainly spoken. And in the next video, I'm going to show you what happens after she sends these signals, specifically what she's waiting for you to do, why most men freeze at exactly this moment, and what the ones who don't freeze actually do differently. You don't want to miss that one. I'll see you there.